about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
Dr. Daliah Show, 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So I went to 12 schools, and I remember one time during PE, my teachers, the coach, had us walk around on all fours, like crawl around, but we weren't allowed to be on our knees. We had to be on our feet, crawling. I forget if they called it like a spider walk or something. And, you know, our butts were up in the air, and luckily we were wearing gym shorts, and, you know, it was, just the girls in the room and all that. But I remember everybody was kind of giggling, because all our butts were up in the air. But it was a difficult workout. I mean, you were moving your arms and legs. Your back was not taking the brunt of the force. So you had to have good arm and leg strength, moving around the gym floor. And I remember not liking it, because I liked to run. I was a pretty good runner. I loved relay, and I loved kickball, volleyball, that kind of stuff. I didn't really like this activity, and we didn't do a lot of it. But now I'm hearing that some people are doing this to improve their workout, and some people are claiming they're getting a nice six-pack and their abs as a result of it. The only thing is you see some individuals actually dress up like a cat, dress up in a mask like an animal. And are they, identifying as a furry, or are they identifying as the animal? Are they crazy, or are they really doing a physical activity? They call it quadrobics. Like aerobics, quadrobics. And some fitness experts are saying this actually might be good. It's bear crawls, cat leaps, things like that. And, it's interesting because as much as I do not want to see anybody wear a mask and, try to pretend to be an animal, we're humans, okay? We're humans. I don't care, if you identify as a dog or a cat. I don't mind if you think in some other lifetime you might have been a cat or a dog or whatever. But, if you are human here on this earth, you're human. Okay? And, I'm not going to let you go to a vet for your medical issues. You're going to go to a human, vets are human, but you're going to go to a doctor for humans. But there is something about how we walk and do things that might not be necessarily helping our backs and our hips. I was telling a friend of mine, I feel like I'm already ready for both my hips to be replaced. I know my knees need to be replaced, but my hips need to be replaced. And, I ran for years, skied. Now, I've worked out every day of my life, even when I was supposed to be on bed rest. And really, my hips aren't lasting my whole life? Well, is it because I don't walk around I walk around bipedally and not as, let's say, a gorilla does or another animal does on all fours? Now, mind you, dogs and cats get hip arthritis just like the best of them. But this downward force, this axial load that we're getting on our necks and our spine and our backs and our hips maybe needs to be changed up a little. Now, I'm not saying to leap around and try to be a deer, an innocent, doe-eyed little deer. I'm not telling you to do that, especially since it's hunting season. The last thing I need is you guys prancing around in the forest and getting shot because somebody's got a deer tag. But I am wondering if part of our workouts need to, be a little bit varied. So in the 80s, we were really, really big on aerobics and the whole Jane Fonda thing, and a lot of our leg exercises and leg lifts and sit-ups and things like that. And I really alternated my standing up and lifting weights to my bench weightlifting to my floor exercises to yoga. The variation of your workout, I think, might be the healthiest. And I do believe that there are some exercises you could do not outside in the wild. Now, I mean, if you really want the fresh air, just don't get shot. But I think there are some exercises you could do that allow you to shift that extra pressure off your back and spine. And I'd like to look a little bit more into that. So quad aerobics might not be all that crazy. The idea, though, of dressing up like an animal, I think does not do it justice. Some people are saying they feel connected to ibex or wild goats. They may wear masks alluding to this. But primal movement, animal flow, or these other practices are gaining traction. And some people think that we might be doing things differently because society has made humans, shall we say, act a certain way, but that might not necessarily be very healthy ergonomically. So, for example, when we go to the bathroom, we're supposed to squat. We're supposed to stand and pee or squat and poop. We're not supposed to sit on a throne. Now, I love the toilet. And sitting on a toilet for me makes it a hell of a lot easier. I wish I was a man so I could pee. I mean, when I wish I was a man, it was only so I could pee, because that really seems to be easy. And they could just whip it out and do what they need to and pee and then get back in the car. Instead, I have to find a place where I disrobe and have to squat. So I can't stand that. I would just like to stand and pee. That's why peeing in the shower is so popular, because people could just stand and do it. But in terms of your bowel health, sitting on a toilet is not the safest. It's squatting. In fact, giving birth. We're in the lithotomy position where we're on our back and we bring our knees to our chest and the baby gets delivered, and it really shortens the canal, which is nice. And that's how we've been delivering babies. But when my mother was trying to give birth to a 10-pound my brother, who was 10 pounds 5 ounces, she couldn't give birth in the normal position. They made her stand and squat, and she was able to get him out. So sometimes we do have to go back to old school. But I wouldn't recommend to do this unless a trainer or your medical provider makes sure you're not hurting any of your joints. And no mask. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away. Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hotshot Secret, powered by science.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit, and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So William asks, what do I think of Prevagen for memory loss? Does Prevagen work? So it's interesting. I bought some Prevagen. It's very tasty. Tastes like a little sugar tablet. It's yummy. I didn't notice much of a difference as it pertained to my memory. I don't know much about Prevagen. I'm being told it's the apoaquarin aspect of it, which is it's a protein that I guess binds calcium. That's supposed to regulate calcium levels in the brain. They believe this apoaquarin has neuroprotective effects, but I haven't really heard of a lot of data. In fact, I think there might have been an FTC issue in terms of their claims about product efficacy. And WebMD says there is no reliable evidence that it boosts your memory. Apparently, there was research, according to WebMD, where people took 10 milligrams a day. They had amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS. They, in this study, they took 20 milligrams several times a day, up to 200 milligrams. And the supplement appeared to be safe at that level, but they didn't, I don't know if they saw enough, shall we say, progress in people's systems. So this calcium binding protein affecting the imbalance of calcium is not necessarily something that is going to prevent Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's has to do with your neurofibrillary tangles and tau and beta protein and amyloid deposition. Yes, I mean, there could be an indirect role, but if you're trying to avoid Alzheimer's, I don't think we have enough studies saying that works. The Lou Gehrig's disease, or ALS, studies where they took multiple milligrams a day were looking at trying to protect, progression of the treatment. They've also looked at it for stroke prevention. But according to WebMD, a federal court ruled in favor of the FTC, who sued the makers of Prevagen, saying that their claims are not backed by scientific evidence and that some of the claims are misleading. So with everybody saying Prevagen works, again, remember, these are commercials. All right. Are you talking to your medical provider? Now, why would then I buy it if I knew that there were adequate studies? Well, one is because I knew I'd have listeners that would ask about it. And two is one of my really good friends said it did work for him and he was taking it. And I was like, well, that's kind of interesting, and I found, and he's a skeptic when it comes to this kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? Let me do my own experiment. It was expensive, very expensive for me. I mean, where I'm thinking, wait a second, how do I keep this up? And no, it to me, I didn't want to buy it or be on it long enough when I just wasn't convinced that it was the safest thing for me. So side effects of the apoaquarin is you could have headache, dizziness, nausea, constipation. You could get edema or swelling in tissues, high blood pressure. It could cause anxiety and nervousness. One person apparently anecdotally had dropped blood pressure. Some said they got depressed and suicidal thoughts. And so, I understand that there's been some lawsuits. And so as far as I'm concerned, talk to your medical provider. Even the Alzheimer's Association cautions that claims about memory enhancing dietary supplements are based on very little science. And we spoke to a doctor at this conference I was at, and I think somebody asked, kind of a similar question, and they said that rather you spend the money on blueberries. We've spoken about how blueberries are so protective, in terms of cognitive effects, and if you really want to spend your money on something, and you really want to, improve your memory, then spend it on healthy food. Now, I noticed my memory start to improve One, when I was started to be treated for menopause, I did not realize how much that estrogen helped my memory. And I had a memory like an elephant, and a butt to match. I tell you, once menopause hit in, my estrogen started dropping. Wow. So I noticed that was a biggie. And cutting back on my sugar intake. Cutting back on my sugar intake was huge. And cutting back on over-the-counter sleep aids. So what I recommend to patients is, are you taking Tylenol PM, doxalamine or Unisom, melatonin? Are you doing that on a regular basis? Because that could be affecting your if you're taking Ambien is notorious for affecting one's memory. So these are things you kind of need to be aware of. Another thing I ask is, how is your sleep? Are you sleeping better? Now, I've been sleeping really good. I think I have a system down. No alcohol, right? Because I'm not a big wine drinker anyway. Take a hot shower before I go to bed. Watch something. I do actually watch a little TV. I can't just jump into bed and go to sleep. So I watch a little something with my husband. Either we're binging on old episodes of The Shield, although I saw the whole series. We're watching a little bit more of that, or we'll watch Below Deck or something that doesn't really require us to do a lot of thinking. Although I really don't want to see a lot of blood and guts before I go to bed. But anyway, we don't talk about work. That is a biggie. Okay, don't talk about politics and Obamacare, which is what kept me up, for most of my, younger years, and keeping the room cold. I bring the room temperature down to about 68 degrees. I do not want to look at our air conditioning bills from this last month, but I got to tell you, the cooler the room, the easier it is for me to sleep. So we do that, and my husband loves it. He loves that I'm in menopause, because now I don't keep saying, oh, the room is cold, the room is cold. But if you get good sleep, I notice my memory is also improving. The Mediterranean diet, again, one of the top diets out there, shown to help prevent type 2 diabetes. If you do a Mediterranean diet and exercise, they found that it can help prevent obese people age 55 to 75 from progressing type 2 diabetes. So moderate daily exercise, lean meat, fish, vegetables, olive oil. These things are, and they help your memory. So I would definitely look at cutting back your sugar, eating well, but also check to see if you have sleep apnea. If you are cutting off your air supply when you sleep and you are hypoxic for most of your nighttime hours, that's not going to help your memory. But, there's a huge market right now, and these commercials are overwhelming for all these supplements. I think there's Super Beats. You see Dana Loesch selling Super Beats. I don't know much about Super Beats, and I've tried to reach out to the company. I haven't heard from them. But I do think beets are extremely healthy. So if you could buy beets and eat beets, and it's interesting because people say, well, I just can't eat it. I can't eat Brussels sprouts. I just can't eat them. Well, really, if we're talking preventing you from getting Alzheimer's or dementia, you really can't throw a handful of these vegetables into your mouth? Really? We're so used to doing things we want to, having choices. So my husband is a fantastic cook, and his food tastes amazing. Why does his food taste amazing? Because he uses tons of butter. Now, my family will say I'm not a good cook. They'll say my food tastes bland, that it doesn't taste as good. And I use spices. So for poops and giggles, on the meals where I throw a bunch of butter, they're like, man, this is so good. This is so delicious. And I'm cringing because I'm like, well, dang, I just gave you guys a bunch of butter. And I tell them, I go, it's the butter. We really need to use less. When my husband makes rice, that rice is so delicious. Again, it's the butter. He adds a ton of it. When I make a turkey, butter. I make a turkey. I use French onion dip soup, or I use French onion soup, butter. I sometimes throw some apples and some fruit in there for sweet. But the more butter I use, the more the kids like my turkey. 187, which we should not be doing. 1877 Doc Daliah, don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOCDALI. So, I talk about personal stuff on the show because I want you guys to realize that I'm not just sitting here saying do as I do, not as I, or do as I say, not as I do. I walk the walk too. And I've been maybe a little dishonest with you guys, not on purpose, but I haven't really felt anxious, depressed about a lot of things. And over the last 16 years, almost 17 years of my show, I've been, telling you about how somehow my coping mechanisms are good. I exercise, I get some sun. The other day, I was having some issues with, we have, my family, not my sons and husband, but my family they're pretty toxic. And so I was getting a little frustrated with them. So I go outside, get a little bit of sun, walk the dogs, come back inside, and I feel happy again. And I've been, teaching you guys some of my coping mechanisms that have really worked. But then I come to find out after I go to the dentist that I must be really stressed out. And it was interesting because for years, dentists are like, do you have stress? Are you stressed out? Like, no, actually, no. I mean, compared to medical school, compared to growing up with my parents and all that, I'm blessed. I'm too blessed to be stressed. No, not. Well, this last time I went to the dentist. Well, one of the reasons why I went to the dentist is I'm eating something and I feel something hard. And I'm like, wow, I must have lost a filling. And it ends up, it wasn't a filling. It was a piece of bone off my tooth. One of the cusps that I must have, with all my, I guess, years of tooth grinding, have broke down. And my teeth are ground down to almost the gum. Now, yes, the tooth does, there is the gum line and there is subterrane of your tooth. But I've destroyed my teeth with my grinding. Now, if you ask me, am I stressed? But this last time when the dentist, I go, well, yeah, I got, my family there's this happening, and, the hostages, well, it's apparently manifesting in ways. And I didn't think I was suppressing. Because your body will find pressure points, release points. And I guess I'm doing that in my sleep. Now, I know I've been grinding my sleep for years because my husband would say he could hear him. He can't hear me grind my teeth anymore. So I thought, okay, then I don't have the problem anymore. Well, why hasn't he for years heard me grind my teeth? Because there's no friction. The teeth are flat. So because I've ruined most of my fillings, which, by the way, I had fairly decent dental care. The one thing I do have to credit my mom for is making sure we went to the dentist, even when we didn't have money, for rent and other things. She made sure we somehow got to the dentist, always brushed her teeth because she had bad teeth. And she says, you definitely don't want a life worth of bad teeth. And so I was very grateful for that, even though I really couldn't stand those fluoride treatments. Remember, you had to, this Ucky gel in a tray, and you had to hold onto the tray with your teeth and let the gel soak in, and it was really disgusting. And I couldn't stand those treatments, and I'd be crying and drooling. So I hated going to the dentist. But fortunately, I don't have a lot of cavities. I brush my teeth a lot. I try to keep my sugar to a minimum. I should dental floss more and water pick more. But the teeth grinding, I know a lot of you all do it. A lot of you also may be grinding your teeth and clenching when you potty. I'm starting to be more aware of that. And I'm thinking about starting to use my night guard when I go to the bathroom. I don't think I grind, but something's happening. Now, night guards are a godsend, but the trick is you have to use them. I don't like using them. I can't sleep with something in my mouth. And I cough, and I need to, I guess, come up with a night guard that'll stay. I did have a dentist created formed night guard, and I ground right through it within a year. And those are expensive. So I kind of have stalled on, on getting more night guards, but I definitely recommend you do that. But another thing I also recommend is, if you're like me going, I'm happy-go-lucky, I'm good. Nothing's getting me down. I feel great. I don't know what everybody's stressed out about. I'm good. Ain't no thing but a chicken wing. No, you need to look for other signs of stress. You can check your biomarkers, check your heart, your stomach lining. A lot of people don't realize that their acid reflux is a sign of their stress. Skin picking. A lot of people will go after their skin and unfortunately, scar themselves, or they'll pull out their hair, or they'll keep playing with something like their cuticles. And as a doctor, we learn to, discover ways that might not be obvious. When somebody says, no, I'm not depressed, I'm not anxious, I'm good, I could tell if you're chewing your nails. I could tell by your teeth. I could tell. And so make sure you let your doctor know that you are, if you are stressed, and ask them to look at parts of your body that might not necessarily be apparent to you, that might be showing elements of stress. Because we talk about, in terms of good health, you need to have your cholesterol good, you need to have your blood sugar down, you need to have your no high blood pressure, but we always say, you got to cut the stress. I'm like, okay, yeah, cut the stress. Okay, I'll make sure I go on vacation. I'll sit by the pool. I'll watch a Netflix movie. Why do we bring up stress? Because stress kills. And I keep bringing up that Indiana Jones comment, where he said it's not the years, it's the miles. And I feel like I have a lot more miles than my biological age should. And whether it was medical school, whether it was my family, whether it was, I took on a lot of stress. And I took on other people's stress. Don't worry, I got this. Don't worry, I got this. I've taken on so much more than I could chew. Did I really have to graduate college in 4 years with no money? So I took all the classes I could, summer classes, worked multiple part-time jobs. Did I really have to do that? By the time I got to people said, gosh, you went to medical school young. You were just turning 22. And I was a 40-year-old by the time I got into medical school. In terms of my attitudes and my experiences, it was just, while everybody, sleeps how many hours a day, all that extra time was me working or dealing with BS or getting dumped or who knows. And so we really cannot underestimate the amount of stress we've put our bodies through. And when I hear people, they get diagnosed with cancer or they get diagnosed with heart disease or liver disease, I'm like, well, I didn't do anything wrong. I did. But what about the stress? Even the most health conscious people may be vulnerable to that. And so how do you limit the stress? I mean, one thing that's going to help me is the hostages coming home, is the country not being so divided. The lies that I see people do, we're going to be talking about what happened with, senators, Republican senators being wired, being tapped. This kind of stuff really stresses me. But, we'll talk about stress a little bit later, in the show. But limiting it is paramount to our health. 1-877 Doc Daliah. Don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So we had the Nimbus strain of COVID. Now we have the Stratus strain, which is overtaken as the dominant strain of COVID. And many of you, you say, oh, I'm over COVID. I don't want to hear about it. Well, you might want to hear about this because as we're going into cough, cold, flu, COVID season, some of you guys might be getting a really nasty cough. And I'm actually a fan of the COVID treatment medication Paxlovid. And it's not because I'm in bed with pharmaceutical companies, like everybody thinks all doctors are, but because what I'm seeing with patients is they'll call up telemedicine saying, oh yeah, I need an antibiotic. I got bronchitis. Even though the majority of bronchitis cases are viral, sometimes people are able to talk the doctor to giving them an antibiotic. So they get an antibiotic or they get a Z-Pack or whatever. And then a week later, they're like, I'm still coughing. Or they'll call up saying, I have the flu. Give me Tamiflu. The doctor's like, why do you think you have the flu? Well, because there's a coworker who says they have the flu, so I was exposed, give me Tamiflu. So they get treated online for flu, and now here we are 7 to 10 days later or 14 days later, and they're still sick and they're still coughing. Now, if they were seen and tested for COVID and treated for COVID, maybe they wouldn't still be sick or having symptoms that are prolonging. And so I'm more about let's figure out what exactly you have and do precise treatment, as opposed to, well, let's just machine gun approach this. Let's just throw whatever at you and see if you get better. Because there's only a 5-day window. If you walk into an urgent care and you say, I've been coughing for a week, and you're out of that 5-day window to get your Paxlovid treatment, you won't get it. Unless they think you're rebounding and you're getting a more severe COVID. And so I'm really concerned about this flu season because, a couple years ago, we had a severe Tamiflu shortage, and that was before flu season started. And it's because one of the reasons is doctors were giving Tamiflu September and October for flu-like symptoms that could have been COVID. And so by the time flu season actually started, we were in dire straits. And the FDA actually had to come out and say, look, guys, can you use the flu medicine for those who test positive or for those who need it? Because unfortunately, we had such a rampant overprescribing of it. And so I don't want you taking the wrong medicine. If it's flu, you have about a 48 to 72-hour window to get on the medicine, to get started on treatment. If it's COVID, you have a 5-day window. But for those of you who did miss the window and now you're coughing, I think this strain of COVID also causes like a sore throat that feels like razor blades. We have a lot of people call in going, yep, I have strep. And so most telemedicine companies mandate that you submit a picture. If you don't have a positive strep test, submit a picture. If it doesn't look like strep, we shouldn't be giving you antibiotics. We should be considering a viral cause. And I've had patient after patient call back going, I was given antibiotics for strep, and now I have a cough, and I'm not better. And I look back at the picture, I go, it didn't look like strep. So I understand a lot of us felt better with antibiotics. That's changing. Another reason why, by the way, that's changing is because many of us have taken so many antibiotics that we have drug-resistant bugs, or it just doesn't seem to have the same punch. So now you have a chronic cough, and you're peeing on yourself when you cough, and it's not fun. How to quell the cough? Well, first, why are we coughing? So the cough is actually a very brilliant defense mechanism because it's part of our immune system to spew out something that could be getting into our lungs. So you inhale something, you aspirate something, you cough it out because the lungs, and boy, are those lungs, have you ever, swallowed down the wrong tube, per se? Your lungs do not want anything in there. And so usually your trachea will trigger this response, and you hopefully can stop it before it goes to the lower lobules and alveoli and more sensitive parts of the lungs. But your immune cells, learn to help then, one, try to cough it out, and then to try to address what got into the system. And so lots of different things can cause cough. We talked about bacteria, we talked about COVID, but also other things like medications. For those of you who take ACE inhibitors, lisinopril, benazepril, captopril, or they can cause a cough. So I'll have patients go, I have this dry cough, it doesn't go away, give me an antibiotic. And I'm like, you're on a medication that might be causing a cough. No, but I've been on that medication for years. You don't have to develop the cough right away. You could develop the cough years later. So that's something to be concerned of. We're getting colder weather. When the weather changes, we notice many people cough more. Pollution, when pollution changes, wildfires, things like that can cause cough. Acid reflux is a biggie. When somebody has a chronic cough and I can't find the source, I ask them, do you have acid reflux? And is your cough worse in the morning? Because if you're lying back and you're refluxing, then the acid has a chance to go up and then could possibly affect then the respiratory tree because you're lying down, and which is why we tell you to elevate your bed at least 45 degrees. Elevate the head part, the upper body part, so that maybe we could, work against gravity. Allergies, lung conditions like asthma, emphysema, sarcoidosis, heart conditions can cause you to have a chronic cough. Of course, tumors, and then tumors. And then, of course, psychological. Some of us will cough and clear our throats psychologically as a tick. And that's something that could be very kind of debilitating, because the more you cough, the more you could cause inflammation. So can you cure a cough? Well, it depends. If we're addressing your acid reflux, yes, we can. If we cure your acid reflux, we could cure you against the bacteria once the virus dissipates and goes. Address allergies if it's a tumor. So yes, there are things you could do. But in the meantime, I like steam. So when I have a cough, I just jump into the shower and I take a hot shower. And that steam really helps. Hopefully I'm not getting Legionnaires from the shower head up above, but let it run first before you go into the shower. But steam, I think, is fantastic. Or lean over a pot. The hydration really helps. The drier you are, the more inflamed. The more you could loosen and wet your mucous membranes and your passages, and the more you could decrease your cough. Honey is amazing. We don't give honey in kids under 1 year old, but tea with honey has been a suppressant we've been using for centuries. Cough drops like menthol work. Why? Because there's a local anesthetic effect that works on the back of the throat. The cough suppressants and expectorants, cough suppressants will decrease your cough reflex, and then the expectorants will thin the mucus so it's not as thick and inflamed. But again, we don't want you self-treating without knowing why you're coughing. Many of you might be taking the wrong thing. Peppermint helps your cough. Thyme, eucalyptus, also, thyme as well, but still, thyme, eucalyptus, licorice, and ginger can also provide relief. We don't have a lot of scientific evidence, but I take a peppermint mint, and I notice that could calm the cough. Chocolate. I'll find any excuse to eat chocolate. PMS, hot flashes, whatever. I love my chocolate. Theobromine can suppress the cough. In fact, back in 2015, it found it to work better than codeine. We're seeing more coughs and longer coughs because we used to be very liberal with alcohol, with codeine, cough syrups with codeine. I remember 1 teaspoon and cough would be gone because you'd sleep through the night. The problem is you had people that abused it. And so getting cough syrup with codeine is now not common. They don't want us to use narcotics to suppress a cough. And there is, especially now with something like COVID, you can have somebody that gets addicted, because if the cough doesn't go away and they're using it every day, now they're starting to get addicted to a narcotic. So cough syrups with codeine are still out there, but not really favored. Same thing with alcohol. Our cough syrups used to have alcohol back in the olden days. Or grandma would give you some schnapps or brandy. We don't recommend that, of course, because you're sick. It could cause, the alcohol could also cause inflammation of the throat. It could cause acid reflux. So we don't recommend that. So even though it worked, I get it. It worked as a kid. Many of us seem to do a lot better, and now we're taking steroids and other things to calm down our cough. My recommendation is try to avoid the cough, clean out your air filters, have a HEPA filter, don't let mold get into your house, that kind of thing. Hope this helps. 1-877-DOC-Daliah.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by financial fitness show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.